say back in the days that I knew Dame's cousin, Stacey Dasher's brother. I can't remember his name now, Steve. But they were the Dashers in Jersey, and in Teaneck, the Teaneck area, whatever, when we lived out there, right? And they didn't acknowledge him. Like Stacey Dash and them used to be like, he's not our cousin. He's like, oh, I'm their cousin. But he's like, he's not our cousin. We don't know him. We don't know. And they didn't. I shared this before. They didn't acknowledge him until he became successful. That make a cat feel some kind of way, Kids growing up poor and under-addressed in those kinds of circumstances, in the hood or whatever. That sense of self is the most important thing there is. That's why cats throw their lives away and put their lives at risk and take penitentiary chances so they can get baubles, so they can get cars and jewelry and clothes and stuff like that, so they can feel some kind of value, feel some kind of worth about themselves. And unfortunately, I mean, if you're adolescent, if you're a prepubescent kid, you 10, 11 years old, and you feel some kind of way because you don't have the things that you are being made to believe or equate to your value, it's understandable that you would feel the need to take risks that you don't really understand in order for you to acquire some material stuff that is supposed to make you be valuable to people now. And when you start getting into, adolescence and young adulthood and you're still on that, it gets a little more serious because obviously the consequences are a little more severe. Now, when you are a man in your 20s and 30s and approaching middle age and all that, and you're still driven by these things, you got a significant problem. It's a problem. All the success in the world is only going to make it worse until you address those issues. And I believe, in my opinion and assessment and the observation opportunities I've had with, Dame as it relates to Dame, and they haven't been like a multitude. I've been around a lot of cats in that industry, a lot. I've been around him a bit because, we was in that industry, me by way of the magazine. I ain't never been a rapper or rap adjacent or none of that, as you know, but, it all coalesced, right? So I was around dude a lot. And as I just said, I was raised to be observational. That's how I survived in the street. That's how I stayed alive, healthy, free, and functional. And I read him. I watched him. I was like, you a punk. And I made a comment under that post between him and the Breakfast Club and him and Charlamagne and stuff like that. And I said, it's interesting.
If we was outside, I'll punch you in the face. I was like,
yeah,
bugging, yo.
It's interesting to see how a dude who ain't tough will act towards a dude he thinks is less tough than he is.
That's why I'm just saying, like, that's what the comedian nigga I like, yo, you not real, but you'll say something to a nigga that you know is like, he ain't on shit. So you like, oh yeah, he easy. You like, what the fuck wrong with you? Like, that don't make you tough for attacking a nigga that we know not gonna fight back. Like,
yeah, that's schoolyard behavior. That's schoolyard behavior. That's schoolyard behavior, Brody.
And then he kind of clowned him. He would like, yo, you never sold drugs before. And Charlamagne was like, I did. I bought so he said some stupid shit. He was like, who bought it? I'm a real drug dealer. He was like, that's nothing to be proud about. I was like, this nigga's crazy.
Yo, this guy wears his psychological issues on his sleeves.
Yes. It was so
he
crazy.
Is so transparently screwed up. That's what's wrong with him. That's what's like, he's screwed up. He's a screwed up, middle-aged adult, like, approaching quick, like physically, dude is elderly already. He's elderly. Dame is in the physical condition of someone 25 years his senior who never took care of themselves. Firstly, you shouldn't be talking about physically doing anything to anybody, because I'm pretty sure that Charlamagne will fuck him up. I'm pretty sure of that. And when I first met Charlamagne, he was working for Wendy up there at BLS, I think it was.
Was he at Wendy or was he down there with Wile E. Coyote?
No, he was Wendy.
Oh,
Wendy's the one that went to Philly. Um, well, Waleed was in North Carolina though,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, I don't
That's where he
remember.
originally from.
Oh, right. Well, when I met him, he was already in the city. He was working for Wendy, but he was quiet as a church mouse pissing on cotton in a corner, as Ronnie Bump would say. Um, boy wouldn't he barely spoke a word. Not being in with her for a couple of hours. Sometimes I'd be on air with her, whatever. Dude would just be sitting there, whatever prompts or whatever he's supposed to be doing. That's what he wouldn't speak a word. He was a very demure young man. Like, it's a stark contrast between the young man that I knew those beginning years, and the person that he became. And he became, I guess, confident. I think that confidence comes from, not to deviate, but just to take advantage of opportunity for, sharing something I think is useful for people if they pay attention. Um, and this applies in my mind to Vlad as well. These guys are not, Vlad is no less part of the culture than Charlamagne,
I be telling
right?
niggas that every time they try to say something. I'm like, yo, Vlad, my man. Like, I've been knowing that nigga since the beginning. Like, he not a
Yeah,
culture vulture. He just a white Russian Jewish guy that's asking questions. And if you gonna answer the question, you gonna sound dumb. But he just doing the job.
that's right. So when those guys first came around and saw hip hop dudes, whether they were street oriented or not, they had a perception based upon where they come from and how they were raised, that all that bravado and all that angst and all that, tough act, they took that for granted. Like, oh shit, aggressive guy, like really tough guy, whatever. They took it that all these guys was like that, right? And all of the materialistic projection, the fake chains weren't as popular as they became over the last 15 years, 16 years or so, but and accepted. But back then it was assumed that if Cat was wearing something, that it was real, right? Because the people who were crafting elaborate pieces of faux jewelry or costume jewelry were not as pronounced or accessible. So people didn't know there were people making really elaborate pieces of fake jewelry. So whenever those guys like Charlamagne and guys like Vlad saw these guys with all their bravado and all their materialistic shit, whatever, they took it for granted. Like, oh, that's what that is. This guy's getting a lot of money, or this guy must be a drug dealer. He must be true to the lyrics he talks about, whatever, and all of that. And they tiptoed around those guys, right? I witnessed both of them in this state. When they came into their own successes and started seeing those kinds of guys, that type, maybe not the particular ones that they were exposed to when they initially came into the game, but that type, that archetype, when they started seeing them acquiescing to them because they had achieved a certain level of success, and they started seeing them, bow down to them and acquiesce to them because
Yo,
they had
what
a degree
up?
of
Oh,
fame.
yo, I see
Yeah,
you and all of that dick sucking shit.
yeah. When they started seeing that, they started like, it was like when Dorothy, saw behind the curtain, the little old man, and it wasn't really the big Wizard of Oz, whatever. It's like, oh, these guys ain't about nothing. Oh, this guy's kissing my ass trying to get access to what I got, trying to get access to my platform, whatever. And they started realizing that most cats are puffed up. They started realizing that, and they became confident. They became aware of the fact that when people think you have something that they can use or that they want, that they will acquiesce to you. They'll acquiesce to you, and you don't have to be tough. You don't have to be bad. You don't have to be none of that, you know. And I think that that's where a lot of their cockiness and confidence came from. And then they start realizing that the public at large has obviously a great deal less proximity to those individuals, right? So they really are susceptible to, the smoke and mirrors. And they realize that these fake tough guys can use the smoke and mirrors to advance their brands. I can do it. And that's what they started doing. Not on no tough guy shit, but just on some boss shit and boss attitude and boss energy shit, And that's really what is happening. It's revenge of the nerds. It's revenge of the nerds. That's what we've been seeing for the last, since those, Murder Inc. days and all that, whatever. Like, that's what we've been seeing. Like I told Supreme when we was coming out of that, out of the Murder Inc. office that day, and, we laughing and joking and kicking and all that, whatever. And, I pulled him to the side, like we was going to the elevator. He hadn't been home too long, and we were working on the promo for Crime Partners, that film that him and Wayne Davis did. Shout out to Dick. Yeah, and no pause. That's what we call him, Wayne Dick. That's right. And if you say pause, you might need to check your tank. There may be sugar. You know what I mean? Like, for real, for real. So I said to him, I said, hey, bro, like on some, you just touched down shit. Like, let me put you on point. These guys walk like us, they talk like us, they dress like us, they drive like us, right? They're not us. They're not us. It's revenge of the nerds out this motherfucker. He bust out laughing. He said, I like that. I'm gonna hold on to that, whatever. And I said, yeah, hold on to it indeed, bro, because these niggas will have you in a fucking trick bag, my nigga. They'll have you in a fucking trick bag. Like, for real, for real. They're very savvy at leveraging, whatever degree of influence or power that they perceive, that other people perceive that street niggas have. And they're very savvy at leveraging that. You know what I mean? Like, getting close enough to it so they have the power by proximity, but not so close that they could be responsible for any of the exertion of that power. Like, they playing, like, these nerd ass niggas is playing real niggas out. Heavy. And I mean, that's why you have the rise of coward culture. That shit gave direct rise to coward culture, where you putting coward ass niggas in the forefront, and exalting them like they the model. They're the ones that should be followed. That's because a lot of real niggas, I'm last of a very rare breed. Like, a lot of niggas didn't make it, man. They did what they did, and they did it too much, and they ended up going to prison and getting buried alive or getting buried dead, and real nigga uniforms laying around unoccupied all over the place. And these suckers came in and slid their asses into the motherfucking outfits. It was like, I'm wearing a uniform, I must be a player, and this is what we got. It's something better be done. I don't know what, but something better be done, because you got the wrong niggas leading. And I'm not, talking about Vlad. Vlad is an excellent demonstration of what you can do when you put your mind to it. When he first came to me and said that he wanted to start, he was a DJ, and, he made the first Don Diva mixtape. And when he came to me and said that he wanted to start doing interviews and stuff like that, and I took him down to Baltimore to let him interview, Uncle Melvin, that was his first joint, even though he lost it in video. But, he saw, and this is '04, so summer '04, like, obviously we didn't have social media, and, most people didn't have internet, most people didn't have computers. And so he saw opportunity well ahead, and probably had a lot to do with the fact that he, has a degree of education. So he understood the other things happening in society that would impact that space in terms of the technology and so forth. And he was ahead of the curve with that, I mean, even, more so than myself, because I was still dealing with a physical product, I was still about, writing and, taking these pictures and dealing with a static world, you know what I'm saying? Dealing with a physical thing, you know what I'm saying? Think of your boy, think of Dane right there. There you go. That was a big deal for them. That was his validation. That's what they like. They like getting that stamp. Don Diva said, if I'm on Don Diva, nigga, they only put real niggas on Don Diva. They don't do snitches, Them niggas know how to leverage everything. They know how to leverage everything. Same for Charlamagne. Charlamagne, I respect him and salute him, because he understood the importance of making a way, in a way, in a place or a time in a society where there's very much a deliberate intention for there to be no way for your black ass. You know what I mean?